Update. Ex-friend 34 female asked me 35 male about our relationship over 10 years ago. How to respond? Original post. I 35 male am happily married with 2 children. My wife 32 female and I have been together for 8 years, married for 4. We were out shopping in our hometown when we ran into my ex-friend, her parents and her children. She moved out of state over 10 years ago and I haven't seen her since, nor have we had any contact other than Facebook happy birthday wishes. She's married with 2 kids of her own. Anyway, onto the situation. My father-in-law and her father are friendly with each other. Both are retired military and occasionally have breakfast together with their other retired friends. When we ran into each other, my ex-friend's dad congratulated my wife and me. We figured my father-in-law told him we're expecting our 3rd child. I saw my ex-friend look at my wife's belly and then act distant for the rest of the exchange, whereas she was friendly starting off. We traded pleasantries and said goodbye. My wife and I continued about our shopping. By the time we were done, I checked my phone and saw I had a Facebook message from my ex-friend. Ex-friend, it was good to see you again. Me, you too. The family looks good. Ex-friend, yours too. Would you want to grab coffee and catch up? I'm in town for a couple more days. Me, we're actually pretty busy. Otherwise, I would be down. I'm sorry. Ex-friend, I understand. Adulting. Can I ask you a question? Me, sure. What's up? Ex-friend, was I just not your type? Me, what do you mean? Ex-friend, I'm asking, what did I do wrong? Me, didn't respond as this was out of nowhere. Ex-friend, I pursued you for years. We were inseparable for years, and you never gave us a real chance. I loved you. Our families loved us. Our friends loved us together. You just never committed all the way to us. You wouldn't even have sex with me, and I need to know why. Was I not good enough? Could you not see yourself married to me and having a family together? I didn't respond and showed the messages to my wife. She knows of this girl and my reasoning for her and I growing apart, mostly because we see her family everywhere and she asked. My wife told me to be honest with her, but I'm not sure if that's right. It feels mean. I'm going to give my POV on our friendship, and I'm hoping I can get some advice on where to go from here. Basically, she and I met through friends in high school. I was very interested, but she was dating someone at a time. She ended up asking me out a month or so later, and we went on dates and kissed a few times, though we never had a conversation about being official. Hence me calling her friend and not girlfriend. One night, while riding in a car, her who I thought was ex-boyfriend called her and asked when she'd be over. She didn't have it on speaker, but I could still hear the conversation. She told him, I can't talk right now, and he asked who she was with. She didn't tell him. He later figured it out and messaged me on Facebook asking if I knew they were still together. I apologized and said I didn't and would cut things off. I called her and she started crying, saying she didn't have the courage to tell me they were still together, but she liked me so much and was going to break up with him. I cut her off anyway. Fast forward a few more months and she reached out, and we went through the same motions. Her wanting to be with me, but always having another guy messaging her that I would catch out of the corner of my eye. This lasted, embarrassingly, for years. Throughout college and our early 20s, it was always the same. She'd reach out, we'd reconnect, and things would begin getting serious again. And check her social media and see she had just broken up with someone. We even went on vacation to the mountains together for a weekend, and the same thing, she had literally just been there a month ago with her ex. The trip with me was her idea. The worst part is, both our families really did love us together. My parents were never rude to my girlfriends, but would ask me how ex-friend is doing these days. Or snide remarks about how her parents missed me. Heck, even my now father-in-law at one point mentioned that ex's dad brought up how he'd really thought I'd be his son one day. I confided in my friends years ago that I was always just a rebound or backup plan, and that's why I could never commit or get more physical with her. They told me to just sleep with her when she came calling and not pursue anything more. The problem was I wanted more but felt used. Anyways, every time we would plan things out where sex was more than likely on the table, I'd see a guy message her or I'd see a post on social media, and it just killed my enthusiasm. When I say that, I mean literally. It crushed my confidence every single time. One of my best friends told me I didn't have to pay attention to all that and could have just had my fun with her. Didn't mean I had to chase a relationship with her, knowing I was always a rebound. That felt crappy to me. I had other girlfriends here and there, but I wanted this girl. We just clicked, you know? But it's like some sort of damn mystical being was showing me a sign every single time things were going to progress in our relationship. I just didn't want her to be getting over someone else or having someone on the back burner when we'd reconnect. Maybe that's my own insecurity, but I know how I felt, and it didn't feel good. So I slowly distanced myself. After a short amount of time passed, I met my wife. She met her husband, and our lives move on, with little to no contact until the other day. I haven't responded to the message, and it's been 2 days. I was thinking of just lying and saying it's not her fault or just not responding. But my wife is insisting I tell her the whole thing. I know this is a word wall, but I'm honestly conflicted. I told my wife I was going to ask others for their opinion, and I'm considering the internet as my others. Now for the top advice before reading the update. OP, she's doing exactly the same thing she always did with you. I would bet all the cash in my wallet that if you were able to look into her life, her marriage is crumbling, or her husband isn't paying enough attention to her. You're the great white whale that got away, and she's trying to test the waters to see if you're down to do the same old song and dance. Now, it's even more of a challenge since you have a happy family and marriage. Don't engage with her. This sounds exactly like the same cycle you described from your young adulthood. She all but admitted to him she's down for anything. Why shoot her shot like that if she's happily married? Or it could be that she's just a cheater. My worry is that, despite it being pretty transparent why things never went anywhere, she's still framing it as if it's some mystery or she wasn't good enough or whatever a decade later. This isn't about closure. This is just her being insecure. And realistically, that was probably always it. Leading on multiple guys at all times? That's what people who live for validation and a sense of control do. She was never able to earnestly pursue you. She had to have other things going on. And the fact that she can't admit that is a big all red flag in my eyes. I don't think it is worth getting dragged into her games again. You know how after every breakup she'd limp over to you for a sprinkle of good vibes and a distraction? This is still that, just in a different form. This is still coming back to you for that validation. And if you are honest with her, what even comes of that? She just acts more sad that she messed it up. And suddenly you start seeing her coincidentally everywhere as she slowly tries to win you back or whatever. This was already a pretty gross play as is. So in my eyes, you ought to just deflect. It never really worked out. It is what it is. We both met people and that was obviously for the best. Don't take it personally. I hope with that you have some closure, as I won't be talking about it further. I've told friends exactly that. We just weren't compatible, which they find hard to believe since we shared so many interests, hobbies, pet peeves, etc. I will add that I was always the one to pull away whenever I saw the aforementioned signs, nor did she try to establish a relationship with me when I was seeing other people. Other than the first interaction with her high school boyfriend, she's always been single when reconnecting. Maybe freshly single, but single nonetheless. So I can't call her disrespectful. Maybe she had other parties interested in her as well, but she didn't know my situation until we reconnected again. Who knows? All I know is it was, at least 3 times we started seeing each other again, and I'd see a man's name come up in a text, and she'd get a huge smile on her face. That was more than enough for me to start distancing myself again. Now for the update. Thank you everyone for the responses. I decided to listen to the majority and responded to ex-friend Amy. The response was well received, and we chatted the rest of the week and met up on the weekend before Easter. The short of it is, we're both leaving our partners. Amy and I are gonna try this relationship again now that we've completely opened up to each other about our true feelings. Thank you all for the encouragement to do this. Couldn't have done it without you. April Fools, I would never. The real update is pretty anticlimactic, unfortunately. I ended up just never responding to Amy. It had already been 5 days by the time I read through every response and decided to just let it go. My wife was fine with that, but told me to block her if she messages again. We did a couple of Easter egg hunts with different family members yesterday, including at my father-in-law's. They have a decent-sized property and host quite a few people, so I wasn't surprised to see non-family members. I was, however, surprised when Amy's parents were there with her children. After all the adults scattered and hid the eggs and the kids started their search, Amy's dad came over to chat with me. Nothing out of the ordinary, and we talked for a few minutes. Towards the end, I asked if the kids were staying with them for Easter, and he basically told me Amy and her husband were having some troubles and needed some time alone to sort things out. He didn't go into specifics, so I don't know exactly what troubles are, but congratulations to those of you who called that one. For now, this should conclude the story. If she does happen to reach out again and I feel it's worth letting you all know what it says, then I will. Otherwise, thanks again. I appreciate the update. You were right not to bother responding to her. Someone that incapable of introspection, so much so that she refused to see how problematic and toxic her treatment of you was, hasn't changed, grown, or matured at all. I hope you and your wife have a lovely week, buddy. He knows her better than she knows herself. Woman needs some therapy. OMG, I knew it. I called this on the original post, that she and her husband were having trouble and she was just trying to get same old ego boost, or even more of one, because you are clearly very happily married. Congrats on a baby, by the way, OP. You win the Reddit Gold Star of the Month for handling this like a hero. You're an excellent husband, and your wife is an awesome teammate / badass herself. Good job, OP. She clearly just needed some attention, and even though you were married, had moved on and she'd be a home wrecker, she didn't care. Even asking, why didn't you want me? Whoa, after 10 freaking years is obviously fishing for compliments and an ego boost, especially since she was the reason you never worked out. Gah, maddening. You did the right thing 100%. Thank you. I noticed on the original post you talked about it possibly being competitive. My wife said the same based on her reaction to the pregnancy news, either competitive or possibly fertility issues after 2 children. To be honest, she's put a lot more thought into reasoning than I have. Kinda wish you'd had told her since I'd like to see her reaction, but it sounds like she wouldn't give you a real answer anyway. As I read the responses to my first post, I took into consideration that I'm sure a lot of people wanted me to respond because it would mean more juicy drama for them to read. That is the opposite of what I wanted in my life. Last story. My boyfriend's best friend's wife got beat up on Christmas Eve, and it's all unintentionally my fault. My boyfriend Patrick, 44 male, and I, 39 female, have been together for a year. He has a childhood best friend, Michael, and Michael's wife, Jessica. I know that in the past, my boyfriend was involved in a threesome with them, and also slept with Jessica separately. While I didn't hold this against him as it was his past, I couldn't shake the feeling of distrust when they were alone together. I was aware that Michael and Jessica's marriage was rocky, but no one shared the full extent of their problems with me. Recently, Michael went into rehab for alcoholism, and Jessica decided to divorce him and move out. Patrick offered to help Jessica move, and at first, I thought it was admirable and fully supported him, until he turned off his phone for 15 hours, stayed at her house for 2 nights, and acted strange when I tried to call. I got upset, but we made up and life went on. The following weekend, Patrick helped Jessica again and there were no issues. On Friday of the 3rd weekend, I hadn't heard from him all day because we were both busy. He was helping Jessica and I was at work. That evening, I called to check in before bed, but when he answered, he was drunk and they were watching a movie together. During our brief conversation, I heard Jessica say, "I know that gets you off," followed by silence. I hung up and texted him asking what that was about. He didn't reply or answer my calls. The next day, he told me it was just a joke, but it felt incredibly insensitive, given my concerns about their relationship. I felt disrespected and suspicious. The following night, both Patrick and I were drunk, and we had a massive argument. Jessica got on the phone to try to defuse the situation and admitted she made a comment to provoke me. I spoke to her briefly, calmed down, and went to bed. However, Patrick stayed at her house that night again, making it the third night in a row over 3 consecutive weekends. Feeling hurt and betrayed, I impulsively messaged Michael to tell him what had been going on. Realizing it was a mistake, I unsent the message almost immediately, as I didn't want to involve myself in their issues. This morning, Patrick was furious. Apparently, Michael still received the unsent message notification and had just gotten out of rehab. I reached out to Michael to explain, telling him I was upset over Patrick's behavior and that I'd been crying for days. I also admitted I wasn't sure if my relationship with Patrick was even worth it anymore. Michael replied with, "I can agree with that, and I didn't think much of it at a time." Fast forward to Christmas Eve dinner with my family. I got multiple angry texts and calls from Patrick. When I finally picked up, he was livid. Michael had driven to Jessica's house, assaulted her, and then kidnapped her. Later, he went to Patrick's house and threw Jessica's belongings into his yard. Patrick accused me of ruining Christmas for everyone. I feel absolutely terrible. If I had known Michael would do that, I would never have involved myself. As a survivor of DV, this has been especially gut-wrenching. I never intended for this to happen, and the guilt is eating me alive. After hearing Patrick's side of things, I don't even think he cheated. I've likely destroyed the best relationship I've ever had. But worse, I inadvertently caused a woman to be hurt. Patrick keeps calling me a terrible person, telling me I've ruined his life, Jessica's life, and everyone's holiday. I don't know what to do. I've struggled with alcoholism myself, and after everything that happened this weekend, I was determined to get sober. But on my way home from my mom's, I ended up buying a bottle of liquor. I feel like the worst person in the world. I honestly thought Michael had a right to know what was going on if I were in his position, but I had no idea it would escalate like this. No one ever told me he was abusive. I just wish I could take it all back. Now for the comments. Block all of them. Get sober. Stop dating cheating losers. Get your life together. Your boyfriend was definitely cheating on you. Don't even doubt it. Yeah, he sounds way in the wrong here. Regardless if he wasn't sleeping with her, he was definitely not putting his relationship first in the slightest. Yeah, if I ended up staying the night at my best friend's place, I would be in full communication with my partner, keeping her fully informed about the whole thing. And we've been together over 10 times as long as these people, so there's been a lot of trust built up. This Patrick has not built up this level of trust and then disappeared for a weekend with a woman he had previously slept with. This alone should be a major problem. But then when his bestie commits DV, Patrick decides this is Sophie's fault? Ditch him. Ditch the entire man. You'd have to be so incredibly gullible to believe they're not sleeping in an intimate way at these sleepovers. Move on and cut your losses. You aren't responsible for other people's actions. If Michael had been a reasonable person, then letting him know was the honorable thing to do, as they were not acting without concern. Michael being unreasonable was not in your knowledge, so you couldn't predict what the outcome would be. I don't think Patrick is all that great either. If everything was innocent, then talking to you and making your feelings a priority would have mattered. Good people don't think it's okay to torment their girlfriends for their own amusement.